And you say he's the husband? All the things he done for the religion of Islam, sacrificing with Dhul-Fiqar, he's the husband in this situation? It showed you, I am dissociated from the man. And they ask us, why do you dissociate from him? He said, I'm dissociated. Having brought all these witnesses, they rejected all of them. But when she proved verse after verse after verse, he then was willing, according to some ahadith, Sir al-Halabiyya states, he was willing to give back Fadak. He wrote it down on a paper. When the second Khalifa heard this, he said, how could you give back Fadak? Why? Because he said, when the Arabs fight us, Fadak is a source of wealth. And if you're giving it away, then we have no wealth to fight. So he went towards the Lady of Light. And what did he do to her? He took the paper of her, and he ripped the paper from her. You would think he done it softly, but his track record speaks otherwise. One of the ulama says, and this is one of the maraja, not even the ulama, the highest level, no need to mention the name. He says, I always wondered whether they struck her or no. I wondered whether they struck her or no. Did they hit Fatima or no? Because there are some who come forward and say she died of depression. Some say no, she died of grief. Fatima Zahra died of grief. Your genetics come from where? They come from Jannah, and you die of grief. Even within the school of Ahlul Bayt, there are some who have these opinions. So one of the Marajah says that I wondered, was she struck or no? And he's one of the Sada. He says in my dream, what he did, if you remember a few nights ago, I said there is certain verses of the Quran, if you recite them on a night, you can see Rasulullah. He recited some verses, some du'as, and that night he said, I saw Fatima Zahra. He said to her, I have been wondering, were you struck or no? He said, what she did next proved to me I was a Sayyid, because she wouldn't uncover her hand unless I was a Sayyid from her sons. He said she removed that part of her cloth and she showed me where they had held her viciously and bruised her. He said her hand was bruised. And he said, she said to me, go and see how my martyrdom is described in Hidayat al-Kubra. Hidayat al-Kubra is one of the books which talks about how Fatima al-Zahra was martyred. He said, she said to me, go and read in that book. In that book, it doesn't just say Fatima was martyred. It says Fatima was slapped. It says Fatima was whipped. It says Fatima was beaten. The worst thing is that for a female to be beaten in the best of times is really hard. But when she is pregnant, that's another situation. And that's why we find even that there is a narration where one day Ali ibn Abi Talib narrates, I returned home and I saw Imam Hassan. Imam Hassan was very young. He said, I returned home, I saw Imam Hassan crying like he's never cried before. He said, I said, my son Hassan, and the lovers of Fatima will shed tears tonight, there's no doubt. He said, my son Hassan, why'd you cry like this? Remain patient, because Amir al-Mu'mineen took all the orphans with him. Imam Hassan said, my father, if you saw what I saw, you would cry as well. You would cry as well. So he said to him, what did you see? He said, when my mother was returning from the mosque, having given the khutbah of Fadak, some of the so-called companions came and struck my mother on her eye. And I saw my mother's eye bleed because of the strike. That's why some hadith say Fatima al-Zahra would not look at Ali ibn Abi Talib in his eyes because she didn't want him to see the mark on the eye. The mark from the strike. He said, I saw the blood. He said, I saw the blood which was coming down. He said, Father, that's the reason I cry. And that's why you find within the hadith, one of the great speakers of Iraq narrates, I saw Fatima al-Zahra in my dream. And within this dream, she said to me, that when you narrate my final moments, I want you to narrate the plight of Hassan and Hussein and Zainab and Kulthum. Because they didn't know whether to go with their father who was roped or to stay with their mother who was hit. Even there is a narration in the time of Imam, the sixth Imam. The sixth Imam narrates, he says there was a lady who had been walking in the street on one occasion, and she had fallen in the time of the sixth Imam. When she had fallen, and as she fell, she sent a la'na on the killers of Fatima. Having said this la'na on the killers of Fatima, what happened was that the guards of Banu Abbas arrested her. The companion of Imam al-Sadiq says, I went to Imam al-Sadiq's house. Imam al-Sadiq offered me dates. I said to Imam al-Sadiq, I said to him, why are you offering, I said to him, I don't want to take from the date. So he said to me, what's wrong? He said that I had seen a lady today who was put in prison because she had cursed the killers of Fatima to Zahra alayhi salam. So he says that, oh Imam, would you read a dua so she is released? Would you read a dua so she is released? So the Imam read the dua, and when he read the dua, he said to his companion, she is released. May God curse our killers. So he says, he read the dua, he said to him, go now towards the prison, she's released, go and welcome her. But tell her to come and visit me, so I want to know what exactly she did this for. So he went and he took her, he went to the prison and he picked her up and he took her towards the Imam. She thanked the Imam for his dua. Imam said to her, I'd like to ask you a question. Why did you curse the killers of Fatima? She said, I cursed the killers of Fatima because when I fell on my rib. When I fell on my rib. And the first thought that came to me is about the nail that pierced the rib of my grandmother. The first thought that came to me is about the nail that pierced the rib of my grandmother. Imam began to shed his Imam began to shed his tears and remembering Fatima Zahra alayhi salam. And it highlighted for us just how important her martyrdom was within the school of Ahlul Bayt. And that's why when we come to remember her, we remember the stories about what surrounded those moments when he came towards the door. And when he came towards that faithful door, Sayyid al-Himyari was of the poets of Al-Muhammad. He says, beaten she was and deprived of her rights, and was made to taste after his demise of wounds. God sever the hands of those who struck her. This was in the company of Imam al-Sadiq. He said, God sever the hands of those who struck her, and those who agreed, and those who followed suit. God never forgive them, and never spare them the horror of the grave. This was the poetry of Ahlul Bayt against the incident. He came towards the door. When he came towards the door, he said, at this moment he said, I have come to receive the allegiance from Ali ibn Abi Talib. She came and did what she did as a lady who defends Al-Muhammad, defends her husband valiantly. At what age? At the age of 18. Some of Ahlul Bayt's daughters today at 18 have done nothing for Islam. At the age of 18 she has come and she is defended by the door. She says, this is the house of the daughter of Rasulullah.